Many people right now are experiencing changes to their perception of reality. Seeing orbs, colors, lights, auras. Feeling as if time is speeding up or at other times slowing down. You might be experiencing more coincidences in your daily life to the point where you know something is going on. What you used to think was magic or make-believe might start to become your day-to-day reality experience. These are side effects of a collective shift happening right now. Many are moving into what is called 5D, the fifth dimensional Earth. And these changes to your perception come along with it. And the good news is you're not going crazy. You're actually elevating your vibration. And that's causing some of your dormant psychic abilities to come back online. Your ability to just know things without knowing why. Your ability to see and sense beyond the physical. It's a new way of navigating reality, and there's a lot of benefits to it. But what this video is about, I'm going to share with you the most common side effects to your perception, the most common benefits, I will say, to your perception for people who are going through this shift in consciousness. Welcome to my channel, my friends. Happy to have you here. My name is Victor Oddo, and I'll see you inside. One of the first things that tends to happen with people is the perception of time feeling differently. There might be times where you look back at your life and you wonder just how life could have slipped by you so quickly. Time is speeding up dramatically. At times it feels that way, does it not? It does for me. It's like the middle of the year and it literally feels like just yesterday we are entering 2026. It is kind of crazy. You also might notice, sort of contrary to that, you are spending more time in the moment, more present, where there really is not much thinking or consideration of past and future and this concept of time. And one moment can kind of stretch on for a very long time. But then, having looked back, actual time has gone by very quickly. I feel that when I'm in the flow state, and I don't know about you, but I'm in the flow state a lot more than I used to be. Looking back at my life, I don't remember being in the flow state all that much. Once in a great while. I remember when I was a little kid, I used to listen to rock music in my bedroom and draw WWF wrestlers. And I do remember even then noticing that, wow, it's already dinner time. That was like my only thing that I can remember. Nowadays, every time I film a video, every time I do a coaching session, every time I play in the pool with my kids, every time I do anything I enjoy, I feel this flow state. I bet you do as well. Even driving in the car, sometimes you're listening to your favorite music, you're getting downloads, and you're like in that excited, elevated train of thinking, and time just sort of slips on by. Another very common one I hear all about is this concept called synchronicity, where things inside of you just so happen to line up with the comings and goings of your external reality so perfectly and so often that you can't help but start to wonder, what is reality? You know, the mystics and sages, they claim from a certain level of awareness that everything is one. Everything is one thing, like waves in the ocean. We are. Everything is. And when you start going through this type of shift, you start to have your own personal validating experiences of this synchronicity. Just an example that came to mind because I just read it recently. There's kind of a cool reference here. It's from Stanislav Grof. This is a psychedelic researcher, really amazing psychiatrist who did a great job of bridging metaphysics, esoteric experiences with modern science. He did his best to kind of create a bridge, allowing people to start taking what we're all going through right now a lot more seriously. And he talked about this one experience he had where during an LSD session, he had a very clear, like lucid experience with what he called a mantis being. There was a mantis being, and I forgot the details of the encounter, but he encountered a mantis being. And anyways, you know, a few weeks later, he was in a cab. He just arrived to New York for some conference or something, and he was like deep in thought. about this mantis being and how unusual that was. And then as he's thinking this, he rolls down his window and looks over, and in the middle of New York City, what does he see? Not a picture of a mantis, an actual praying mantis in the middle of New York City. And that was like, wow. What are the odds? What are the odds that out of all the different bugs and living creatures, the moment he's thinking about that, he sees a praying mantis? Those are kind of rare. I've only seen maybe a handful in my entire life, but in New York City, crazy, right? And of course, the skeptic will say, well, this could happen. Obviously, it could. But people like you who are watching videos like this, who are experiencing this shift, are experiencing similar phenomenon over and over and over and over and over again, where it can't. There's no way it's just coincidence. The odds would be astronomically low that you would experience these little mini ironies so frequently. Whether you're seeing numbers on the clock, the same numbers over and over again, or whether you're thinking of somebody and all of a sudden they show up at your door, they text you, and maybe you haven't thought of them in years. Maybe you're stuck with something in your life and you're puzzled, and all of a sudden you somehow life brings you the exact message you need, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it could be anything. You realize that you are not separate from life in the way that most people have been taught to believe. You are part of life. You are supported by life. And as you raise your frequency, you'll start to have your own validating experiences of this fact. Another interesting one that some of you might experience, not everybody, but seeing into other dimensions. Seeing stuff, phenomenon, objects, beings that not everybody is seeing. What comes to mind is this shaman I knew. They were doing a retreat. Where was it? Gosh, I want to say Norway. I could have the country wrong, but they were doing it somewhere overseas. Where? Finland. In Finland. And not one, but almost all of the participants said during the ceremony what they saw were gnomes, like little gnome beings. And they all saw the same thing. What the gnomes are doing, which is kind of mischievous and funny, is they were covering their ears when the shamans were playing music, as if to kind of protest the noise. And of course, you might say, well, that was ayahuasca. But that kind of thing might start happening to you, might already be happening to you now, completely stone cold sober. I've experienced this many times. I experience this sometimes several times throughout the day. Lately, when I'm watching TV with my family, I notice in the upper left-hand corner, these like flashes of light. It's like these orbs of different colors. Sometimes they're white, sometimes they're black, which I wonder what that means. But it's like these little images of light, or lack thereof, will kind of emerge into existence and then kind of come back. Earlier in my spiritual awakening, when I was personal training clients, what I would notice is that the clients, after they were working out for about 15, 20 minutes, eventually had these big auras. I could see these very bright, kind of expansive auras. And I was able to literally watch them grow as they're doing their squats and deadlifts and things like that. Now, what is that? There's nothing actually there, but I saw it. I know I'm not crazy. Do you think everybody who saw the gnomes are all just losing their mind? No. They're really, like, how arrogant is it to assume that just because I can't see it with my very limited sort of senses and faculties, that it doesn't exist? That's insane. Is it really so hard to believe that our perception can change as we evolve? Either way, maybe we're all nuts. Doesn't matter. Because what I found is that these new ways of experiencing life, whether I'm crazy or not, oftentimes are very helpful to me. A synchronicity, for example, at a time when I'm losing faith, can be exactly what I need to brighten my spirits. It can sometimes also serve as a very valid and reliable source of guidance. Have you not been led to do something through some type of synchronistic thing that didn't really make sense and in the end benefited you? Me as well. I have had the privilege of seeing deceased loved ones. Whether they're real or not, it made me feel good. I felt their presence. I was able to actually see them, and it brought me comfort. Sometimes it brings me advice that's helpful. One time with my wife's brother, he passed a couple years ago, and I was struggling with guitar, and I had this strong feeling he was there, and I actually heard in my head to spread my fingers more. It was this thing he would always tell me. This guy used to have these huge hands and big long fingers, and he'd always kind of like show me, how to like hold the guitar correctly. And I remember like I felt and I heard that in some kind of psychic telepathic way. And it was, yeah, it worked. It was like, it really kind of helped take my guitar playing to the next level. So, okay, you tell me I'm crazy. I don't care. That was enjoyable for me. That was a very special moment for me. And if science wants to label it a certain way, it doesn't change what it has done for me or what it has done for you. Another one is going from thinking, trying to figure things out, to knowing. You know, looking back at a decent chunk of my life, I don't recall making major life decisions based upon knowingness, based upon like strong hunches, intuitive, nudges. Now, most of my key decisions are made precisely from that knowing. It allows you to bypass a lot of unnecessary tangents and experience more of like a non-linear manifestation. You open up to the ability to perceive life direction from parts of yourself that were previously closed off to you. But it doesn't come forth in the way that most of us would prefer, which might be like some clear like idea and downloaded plan. It's more so of like a sense, like a sixth sense of feeling. Do you not sometimes just know stuff without knowing how you know it, where you came to learn it? Sometimes this knowingness comes in an instant and you know a bunch of stuff and it just sort of is there. You might notice this in particular about people, that you meet somebody and you can sometimes, not always, but sometimes know almost even like instantaneously whether they're compatible with you or not, whether they have your best interest or not, if what they're saying doesn't match who they are and what's going on the inside, you'll know this. And you can pretty well suss out people sometimes without even having to hear a word that comes out of their mouth. You can just sometimes see it in their eyes. You can feel it in their energy. You can feel how you feel in their presence, whether that's light, energized and safe, or heavy, concerned, unsafe, all this stuff. And man, this is very valuable when it comes to relationships, when it comes to business partners, when it comes to working with anybody, when it comes to even like if you're going to move somewhere, for example, and you happen to meet somebody, you can get a vibe of like the neighborhood just from like a couple of encounters sometimes, rather than having to move there and learn through like physical nuts and bolts proof. Oh, this is not my place. You now have foresight, but it's difficult. Is it not as difficult? Because a lot of times this insight will contradict what you think about the situation. And a lot of times this insight will come without a lot of details, and you have to rely on faith. What comes to mind is another piece of advice from a shaman, a different one actually. And this was at a time when my friends and I have gathered, we were gathering people in Costa Rica. For the first couple of times, we've done it like 12 times by now, but the first couple of times we organized ayahuasca retreats in Costa Rica. And we linked up with this amazing shaman family who came about very synchronistically. It's a whole other story, but it was very interesting how this all came to be. And we did a couple of runs with it, and we were all kind of hanging out, having dinner afterwards. And this one main shaman who kind of like connected everybody, he's like this real wise guy. He's kind of a cool, like wise dude. And he was talking to the table and he was saying, I think we can all feel something very special is unfolding right now through all of us. He says, even though the path is unclear, you can always smell it. Where his exact words, you can smell it. We don't know how it's going to go. We don't know what we're going to do next, how that's going to look. But we all can smell, we can all sense there's something at play here. And we can trust that, we can follow that. And it's led us to, at that point, like 10 more truly special, life-changing ayahuasca retreats with about 30, 40 people. We gather about once a year, and it's been amazing. But the point is, you might find yourself in your life, even right now, being asked to do that. You might right now want to figure everything out. A lot of times as we start shifting in this non-linear way, we go through periods of rapid manifestation and acceleration and clarity and gusto. And then there are periods of like stagnation where nothing really seems to be happening. And your mind will try to understand everything, but there's nothing to grasp. And you just feel kind of abandoned in the unknown, without a raft, without a boat, without a paddle. And it's quite scary because the mind doesn't have a way of navigating this. But what is available is this knowingness, this ability to smell the path. And you might find that more and more and more, life is sort of asking that you start to trust more and follow your way through life in this new way. You also begin to start seeing truth from illusion, not just about life and people and reality, which for sure you'll start to see things you can't unsee that do change things, require you to make adjustments because you're now seeing the truth of everything. But you also have that same exact experience looking at yourself inwardly. You'll start to see more clearly parts of yourself that aren't really real. I want to say they are like smoke thought forms, belief structures that were kind of given to you, that unconsciously you temporarily agreed to and have been allowing to kind of live through you as if they were real, as if they were really you. But thank God you start to wake up to that. The illusion of your unworthiness, your unlovability, all your what you perceive to be these fundamental flaws are eventually seen as mistaken thought forms, mistaken beliefs. And it can be a process though, because what usually happens before these liberating insights is these beliefs will sometimes sort of like they have like one last ditch effort to like lure you in. It reminds me of dreams. I've done a lot of studying with dream interpretation. And one of the things, and you might notice this as well with your dreams, that can happen sometimes is oftentimes your psyche through your dreams will try to communicate something to you. Oftentimes it's like a limiting belief. And it will play out, you'll play out these dreams all the time. Like my wife for a long time had a dream where she caught me with another woman. And not only was that, of course, a painful discovery, but in the dream, I would be like completely like callous about it. Like, yeah, so what? What's your deal? Kind of thing. And she'd have this reoccurring dream. It's because her psyche was trying to mirror to her this sort of irrational belief that I would do anything like that, which of course is not true. But what will sometimes happen in your dream time is if you're not getting the message, if it's not clicking with you, you're not getting it, it will embellish the belief. So maybe, for example, my wife comes home and there's like 20 beautiful women and I'm like, hey, what's your problem, lady? And it's like really over the top as a way of kind of like embellishing the belief. And what that'll oftentimes do is it'll allow you to kind of see it for what it is, like a ridiculous over the top belief that is untrue. Now your life can sometimes do this as well. It can kind of amplify these wounds, these misaligned beliefs, these distorted ways of viewing yourself, and it can even allow you to temporarily create the illusion of them being true in your external life until you finally get the message. Huh, this is getting a little funny. This is a little bit over the top. And you finally wake up and say, this is not me. I'll have this sometimes. Even like when it comes to like my online presence and doing things with lots of people, sometimes I'll forget that I've been doing this for 10 years, that I've worked with thousands of people, and my old self will come up and make me feel as if I have no business being here. I do not have a place here. I am like just not enough, basically. And it'll come, and when it comes up, it's so strong and it's so difficult to decipher at times. But luckily, like those dreams, sometimes it'll become so over the top that you can't help but notice it. So my point is, you might start noticing these illusory parts of yourself, but it doesn't mean it's going to be very easy for you. It doesn't mean it's an easy or instantaneous experience. But as you continue to shift your frequency, what's going to happen is your greater being, your true self, is going to start pushing these illusory beliefs up to the surface, kind of demanding you confront them and see them for what they are, so that you can start to be a greater embodiment of who you really are at the core, underneath all of that nonsense. Moral of the story, you're not crazy. You're just waking up. This is part of it, and you're not alone. Check the comments down below to see evidence to that fact. You're not alone. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. God bless.